Okay, so going back over the relationships that are characterized as symbiotic, mutualism, there is an example of mutualism where we have bacteria that live in our intestines, in our large intestines mostly, and release vitamin K and vitamin B12. Both of these are important in producing blood components. Commensalism, there are obligate anaerobes that live in our intestine because E. coli uses up oxygen. So E. coli uses up oxygen, and these obligate anaerobes live there because there's not any oxygen. So they're able to live in that environment. As far as what we know now, there's no benefit to humans. There's no harm either. Then parasitism, many disease-causing bacteria, we call them pathogens. Anything that causes disease is a pathogen, and many of those form endospores, like the botulism, the one that causes botulism and tetanus. Okay. Now, this is a legume, which you may know. Legumes are high in protein. They grow on the roots of plants, and their roots contain nodules, and those nodules, inside of them there is bacteria called nitrogen-fixing bacteria that convert nitrogen from the air into usable nitrogen. These are images of the Clostridium tetani species, which causes tetanus, and notice that they form endospores. That's what an endospore looks like. And here's some bacterial diseases. Make sure that you know these STDs are bacterial, they're not viral, and they're not from a protozoan or fungus. There's syphilis, gonorrhea, and chlamydia are the most common bacterial STDs. There are respiratory diseases like strep throat, scarlet fever, tuberculosis or TB, pneumonia, Legionnaire's disease, whooping cough, anthrax. There are skin diseases, acne, and worse, leprosy or Hansen disease. There are digestive tract diseases, gastroenteritis, food poisoning, dysentery, cholera, peptic ulcers, stomach ulcers, and dental caries or cavities. Then there's nervous system diseases, botulism, tetanus, leprosy, spinal meningitis. And systemic diseases, such as these affect the entire body, plague, typhoid fever, diphtheria. And then other diseases like tularemia and Lyme disease. Lyme disease, of course, is caused by ticks. You can look these up, but the main thing is to compare this table to the one that shows the diseases caused by viruses. Okay, antibiotics kill bacteria in two ways. So they fall into two classes. They either inhibit protein biosynthesis, and this would be erythromycin and tetracycline. You may recall tetracycline is used to cure acne. And compounds that inhibit cell wall biosynthesis. So they either inhibit protein synthesis or cell wall synthesis. So these affect bacterial cells, but not animal cells. Penicillin, ampicillin, fluoroquinolone. And then there's a section here that talks about antibiotic resistance is increasing. Staphylococcus aureus is a skin infection, the most common skin infection in hospital settings. And 90% of the Staphylococcus aureus infections are now resistant to penicillin and more to methicillin, and that's what we call MRSA. Very, very common in hospitals and nursing facilities. Now, cyanobacteria are actually gram-negative, but they're photosynthetic. They're believed to be responsible for introducing oxygen into the primitive atmosphere. So by the cyanobacteria introducing oxygen, it made the atmosphere high enough in oxygen that other aerobic organisms could live here. In association with fungi, cyanobacteria form lichens. And then when there is a lot of pollution in lakes and ponds and bodies of fresh water, you can have blooms of cyanobacteria. We call them cyanobacterial blooms. And then they will use up all the oxygen, and you will start to see fish dying, laying on the surface, floating on the surface because they died. This is just showing you different cyanobacteria. This one here is called Oscillatoria. Okay, for archaea, archaea do not have peptidoglycan in their cell walls, and biochemically they're more like eukarya than bacteria. That's why they're not grouped with the bacteria. Now, most archaea live in harsh conditions. The ones that live in salty conditions are called halophiles. The ones that live in hot sulfur springs, like the hot springs in Wyoming, in Montana, Yellowstone National Park, these are called thermoacidophiles because it's very, very hot and very acidic. The pH is very, very low. The way they're able to survive is their plasma membranes contain unusual lipids that confer tolerance of high temperatures. So they are able to tolerate high temperatures. In anaerobic marshes, where there's not any oxygen available because it's like in the swamp, those are called methanogens, and they produce methane from hydrogen gas and carbon dioxide. This is an example of halophilic archaea, thermoacidophilic archaea, and methanogens. And that is it.